You're listening to episode number 24 of the AlaREIA Masterclass Podcast. What's going on, everybody? It's Brian Trippe. I'm here in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. I got a great guest, as I always do, Mr. Jeff Morris, and we're going to get to the guest in just a second. I just want to make a few announcements. We got so much going on, guys, and I really hope. We just got done with our workshop, our 3-day workshop, which it's always phenomenal. If you didn't get a chance to go, make sure you get in touch with me so we can let you know what the dates of the next one's going to be. But had a phenomenal time there. Our next AlaREIA meeting is going to come up in July. It's always the second Thursday of every month. It's going to be on July 13th. Mr. Joe Turney is going to be speaking about fix and flip, how he actually just created a fix and flip and rental property business in a very short period of time, how he grew his rental portfolio to where he could actually retire on it. So he's going to come and speak to us on July 13th. It's going to be a great time. You definitely need to come. Obviously, you're listening to our podcast. We've gotten some great reviews. If you have not subscribed, go right now, subscribe, rate us, review us. We definitely appreciate all the love that you give us. So without further ado, I want to talk to Jeff. How's it going today, Jeff?
Great. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm doing good. Thanks for coming in. Jeff is a closing and title agent for Members Title. And he's obviously Members Title sponsors our group. So if you don't know that, all this stuff's on our website. You can go look him up. You can also go to, I think is it memberstitle.com?
It's MBRS.
Yeah, that's right. I knew that. It's MBRStitle.com. So definitely you can go check them out there. But we'll get all the contact information and stuff at the end. So Jeff, really how I kind of want to start is tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about how you got into real estate specifically as far as a closing agent is concerned. And tell us about Members Title.
Okay. I'm originally from Nashville and grew up there and came here to Sanford in 1993, attempting to play football there while
Wow.
Terry Bowden was there. And I tore my ACL, my MCL, my kneecap, and my cartilage right before I came.
Wow.
And he left. And I just decided it was better for me to be a student. And so I ended up in Birmingham for 4 years. After I finished Sanford with a biology degree, I was working at O'Charley's my last semester and was just done waiting tables and went to a company called Robinson Adams in Homewood and told them that I'd like to start and I wanted to be put on salary, but I had to miss 10 hours a week for class, and they did it for some reason. And so what my job was there, we were an insurance company with several different products, a healthcare division, but the main thing that we did was kind of the only company in North America that insured car auctions for return checks and drafts, among other things. And my job very quickly was when we had losses that exceeded $250,000, they would send me to go find people and recover assets from them. And it was fun while I was young, but I did not think it would be something you could support a family at if you find out Wednesday that you need to leave at 5 and it's 3 o'clock when you find out.
And it sounds dangerous too.
There were some times that were a little bit scary, or that I had to track somebody across the country and sleep outside their door until they woke up and I could stick my foot in it and discuss how we were going to recover our funds. But I enjoyed it, and I had thought about going to medical school, and I didn't work for any doctors until right at the end of college, and it was too gross for me.
Right.
And my dad was a dentist, and so as I was working and knew I was going to go do something else, he talked to me about coming to work for him, and I took the DAT, but then decided that's too gross too. So I decided to take the LSAT and see how I would do, and I did decent. And
without knowing anything, you took the LSAT.
Yeah, I didn't know what was on the test. I asked one of my friends in line if they had any math or science, and there was not. But after I got my results back, I started contacting schools. And I intended to go away just to see somewhere different, another area of the country. But Alabama offered me a scholarship, and they were highly ranked and inexpensive with my scholarship, and it just made it where schools that might be a little better were way too much money, and then the other schools weren't as good academically. So
Right.
after staying in Alabama, I left home to return to Nashville and did some construction litigation because it was basically the job I could find. And from there, went to work on a merger in Washington, D.C. for a brief stint. And that was more contracted, appointed work, and I could work as hard as I want to. And I think that's kind of where I got some of my long hours I keep at the office. I worked about 92 hours a week, and knew that job was going to wrap up, and interviewed with a title company back in Birmingham on a friend's suggestion. And when I came back, they just had me sit in on closings for about a week and open my own office. And so
Wow.
it was I've kind of got just thrown into it, but it helped me learn. I feel like I know the documents backwards and forwards because I didn't know what else to study to learn. And I had to start an office from scratch with not really any real estate contacts. And so some of my ideas on what was helpful getting clients were very off, or some people that I thought our potential clients were. And then other things I just kind of figured out what worked for me on that end. So when I started doing that, it was about 2005, I think April of 2005, I started doing this, and the market was heading towards a shock there, and I was still just picking up business. So when the market started to tank, I just tried to grab more market share, and trying to keep the same amount of deals I had required a lot more agents and loan officers. And so as their business came back, then I'd really expanded mine. And so I just try to use that philosophy. If it gets a little tight, I'm just going to try to go get more customers. And then when it loosens back in, I'll get more revenue.
Gotcha. So you've been in business now for
about
12 13
years.
Yeah. And same location in Homewood, or did you guys move around a little bit?
I had worked for a larger title company and had an office for them in Mountain Brook Village. And in 2013, I left to merge Members Title and Shannon Kroll, who was an attorney that was just doing closings, that they shared a neat old home, very nice office in Homewood. And I left and merged them and formed one company, and that's what Members Title was.
Gotcha.
The original title company was had mainly credit union customers, and that's kind of where they had gotten the name Members Title. And then we've got 3 members in the LLC, so we decided just to keep the name.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so for everybody that's listening, and for me, selfishly, that's I guess that's the great thing about having a podcast. It's my podcast. I can ask all the questions. But what I really want to know, and the reason why you're here, and aside from some others, I want to know about specifically like title work. Okay, so I'm going to ask you like a lot of questions about doing my own title work. When should I get a professional to do it? So let's start with just kind of really basic question. Let's just really just for the people that are brand new, kind of define that. Let's just kind of define like that process. You get a house under contract, and then what happens next?
Okay. Then from our perspective, what we would like to do when you got the house under contract, email your title company the contract. They take it, they verify the address with some courthouse programs that we have and the tax records. Then the person that it goes to initially is called an abstractor or a title searcher, and they take the property and trace it backwards. Most companies trace it backwards for 40 years to make sure that they're in the chain of title, and then they search it back forwards and make sure no pieces were ever transferred, or maybe it was sold to the same property was sold to 2 different people and things like that. What the abstractor is looking for Are any liens that would attach that result from a lawsuit or a municipal lien or homeowners association lien? Any periods in the title where we have two people that the property was sold to, and now we just have one signing that they're selling, so we need to make sure something was addressed. Was that a death or a divorce, and do we have the documentation to make sure that the title is correct? When the abstractor is finished with his search and searching bankruptcies and other courthouse records, then they send a title abstract to our underwriters in the office. They take that and they prepare an insurance commitment, which is our promise to pay. So that's promise to insure. That's what the title commitment that we send back to you is. It's supposed to direct you for everything that you need to do in order to sell this property with a valid owner.
Right. So I guess just like let's define what the like, because when I hear the word insurance, when I first got in this business, I hear the word insurance. It kind of confuses the heck out of me. So there's the guy out there that's brand new that doesn't really know the process. What are you insuring exactly, and why do you need it?
Okay. The insurance is a one-time per owner premium that is paid at closing, and it's not like homeowners insurance where we're insuring the structure,
Right.
but we are insuring the value usually of your purchase price. But what we're actually insuring is the dirt, and basically that by having this insurance, you know that the property you have purchased belongs to you.
Okay.
And there are many title insurance claims with different people out there. So it does happen that somebody buys something thinking they own it, and it's probably even more possible in the wholesale arena because of the houses you're getting.
Right. We're going to get to that for sure.
And that we're making sure that you own the property that you are purchasing or selling.
Which is very important. We're going to get to wholesaling here in a second, but I just really, like, when it comes to like title searches, the biggest question I have, because as a wholesaler, and the majority of my stuff is wholesaling, as a wholesaler, I may be getting so many contracts, and maybe only 50% of them are going to actually close. Maybe if I'm getting tons and tons, I'm just putting everything under contract, which, some people do that, some people don't. Say only a third of them are closing. I don't want to send every single contract I have to you or to any title company because I don't want to, and you're probably not going to charge me, if I'm closing on 2/3 of them, you may not charge me for the ones we don't. But if we're only closing on 10 or 20% of them, you may not want to, and you're probably going to get sick. It's kind of like the realtor who, the investor asks the realtor to do all this research for them. They don't know if they're going to ever get paid. So it's kind of like that. I don't want to send you everything I have unless I really, really strongly believe it's going to close. What steps can I take as a wholesaler to do some maybe preliminary stuff just to make sure that the guy I'm talking to actually is the owner? Is there anything that I can do, any searches I can do on my own?
Yes, that's a good question because some of the times we have systems that we pay for that wouldn't be financially a good idea for you to be paying for. And we also have a title plant that we work out that has all the documents that are in the courthouse stored there for easy access, and that's very expensive too. So sometimes I can find things quicker or easier for you. But the two areas that I think that you could use that are free are, one, look at the tax records. They're not always current. Often they won't change the records until the next tax year. If you see that your owner is the person listed on the tax records, that's a good idea. Maybe this is a legitimate sale.
Right.
Also, use the clerks at the probate court. If you just even find the last deed of record, that doesn't mean there won't be problems in the back chain.
Right.
But I see often in a lot of these situations the people that particularly call off of the advertisements or maybe off of signs they see often don't really own the property, even when they think they do.
Right.
They have a parent that passed away.
Right. Yep. We're going to talk about all that. I got specific
Okay.
questions about that. So you're telling me the steps I can take. We look at the tax records.
Yeah. Jefferson County and Shelby County
Yep.
are both online.
Citizens
and you
Access
can enter,
Portal.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
We
right.
we teach that. If you haven't, definitely go back and watch our videos. You can just search AlaREIA on YouTube, ALAREIA. We've got videos, tutorials on how to do that for Shelby County and Jefferson County. So we definitely do that. The problem I run into, I guess there's probably not even a good answer for this.
Yeah.
I'm only asking because I'm just in case there is a good answer for it. The one problem I do run into with the Citizens Access Portal with that stuff is if someone is tax delinquent, or if something's been sold in tax sale, the owner of the property, the actual owner of the property, is not listed as on the tax records, at least on that year. It's the person who purchased the tax certificate. There's really the only other way I know how to find who the actual owner is to go back, is to click on like 2013 or 12 or 11.
That's the best way to go backwards and see, and then that would
Okay.
even indicate to you whether or not it's sold in a tax sale. And I
Okay.
don't know the phone number for Shelby County, but 325-5505 gets you to the tax assessor in Birmingham.
Okay.
And you could even call them
Call
and
them and ask
say, hey, I want to know who you have listed as the property owner in this property.
Perfect.
Because I can't see it online because it looks like there was a tax sale.
Great advice. Great tip there. And then the other one was go and find the last deed of record. What's the best way? I use Landmark, Jefferson County Landmark. Do you guys use that at all, or
we don't? If you have, is that a paid for service?
It's free to see the first page, to look at it, to look at the first page.
Then that would be
it's a good place to go. Okay.
Very good. That'd keep you out of the courthouse. But
yeah.
Even people that do stuff more downtown.
Okay.
If it's nice to have a good relationship with somebody there.
Yeah.
They can pull estates for you too.
Cool. Okay.
If you're not printing records, it's probably not going to have any charge.
Okay. I asked the question because we got a professional in here that does it every day, and that's what you just said is exactly what I teach. I don't teach anything else. So just making sure for me and making sure for all you guys listening that's what I do and that's what I teach. So that's good that we didn't leave anything out there. So let's jump in. Let's talk about wholesaling, okay? Because you deal with lots of properties. You close a lot of properties that are brought to you by wholesalers, or brought to the end buyer by wholesalers.
Right.
You guys can do assignments, I'm sure, and the double closes. You're very comfortable with doing any of that stuff. So I guess the question, I'm going to have a couple. Most of these properties are going to be off market.
Right.
And and I think you were telling me this when you spoke at AlaREIA a little while ago, you were telling me this, that a lot of those properties are the ones that if there are going to be title issues, those are the off-market ones are probably going to have the most amount of title issues. What do you see that is most common that maybe we could correct?
Things that I see that we don't even know until we've already ordered a search fee.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, already paid for a search to be done. And you all have already spent money working on a deal, and we've got a contract usually when we're ordering the search. The things I see are when people have had deaths in the family, there are two types of deeds. And one is there's more than two types, but two common types. One, you just own 50% interest if you own the property with somebody else. And when they die, their estate owns 50%. Another one has survivorship that transfers the property. And so sometimes you don't have both of the owners, but there's an easy explanation. They own the property together. One of them passed away. If you can just get a death certificate and ask if they were still married when they died, because there have been some recent Alabama law out about what happens if there's a divorce before death. But that's a situation that you may find something a little different than you're finding on the courthouse records, but it's easy to investigate. What we have a problem are people that own the house, live in the house. They're the one that got your mail out. They're the one that saw the sign, and it was their mom's house. And there are other siblings, and maybe because of something they've done for their parents. None of the siblings care that they have the property, but it's not just as simple as that. In that situation where none of the siblings care, if there is a will that was out there, we're going to make them probate it, because that's the only way we know that there's not another will or any claims against the estate. And we're not going to be able to give your seller their proceeds for 6 months. And if there wasn't a will, we're going to have to hold their proceeds for 2 years, because those are the probate claims periods, to be fair to other people that they may owe money. And that's another thing. There could be liens on the property that this individual whose parent owned the house doesn't know about. Nobody's trying to collect anymore because they're deceased, and they think they own this property free and clear because they don't have a mortgage, and they're selling it for $50,000, and they've got a lien that's 48.
Yeah.
And so the situations where parents or family members have died is one that is usually something we can work through, but often they think that they're owners and they're not. Situation where someone gets divorced, and a lot of times the divorce attorneys prepare deeds that may not have all the information that they need on them, so that can be a cleanup problem. But oftentimes they just give them to the individuals, and they never have their ex-spouse sign the quitclaim deed over. And so that can be something that we have to go back, that we can fix if we can find a spouse.
Yes.
But
Gotcha.
that can be difficult. But another situation, and this happens a good bit, are people that pay taxes on the property for a couple of years and think that that makes them the owner. And the law appears to be clear, but even the way that they implement the law is not always even clear. Basically, after 3 years of paying someone else's property taxes, the state will assign you a tax deed.
Right.
That is not a deed to the property. That means you own the interest in the taxes. Most judges are going to require another 3 to 4 years of paying the taxes before they will grant you a deed. And in order to get that deed, you're going to have to file an action to quiet title. And in order to have an insurable title, anybody that I deal with, any of the underwriters, the other title agencies, are going to require that they go to court and do that. And if you're talking about a $10,000 property, and we're talking about $6,000 in legal bills,
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't add up.
So, but these people think that they own the property.
That's right.
And that is a big time waster.
Yep. So it's a big time waster. So the ultimate question, the number one question I have is, which I already asked it, but how can I avoid getting you, the closing agent, involved? How can I avoid getting you involved in something that is going to be a big time waster? There's not a whole lot of safeguards, not a whole lot of ways to know that unless you actually dig into it to see.
And in your preliminary research might give some of this. If the person's agreeable and they keep good records, you could ask them, do you have a copy of your deed where you got the property that you could just take a picture of with your phone and send to me?
Right.
And then that's an easy thing for the seller. And if they're on the deed, we're not going to know of any back problems until we get it. But oftentimes these people that are selling or under contract, I'm finding, are not even the owners.
You're finding they're not even the owners just because
because their parents died or their grandma died, or they got in a tax sale and they're trying to sell it.
So they've got a claim to the property. They're just not the actual potential claim to the property. They're just not the actual. They haven't gone through the proper legal channels to get good marketable.
And I really don't mind. If I have to get involved. At that point, I've got one that I'm waiting on 19 heirs to sign closing documents, and they're all going to get about $2,000. It's probably not even worth it for them, but it's worth it for one of my customers to have it done, and they've worked hard to keep the deal together. And I don't mind doing that. It's just, it just requires more work, and some of mine are easier. and don't require as much work, and
Right.
and that's fine if we have a real person that should own the property and we just need to do some corrective work.
Gotcha.
When it's the tax, if a guy bought a tax sale, and you can just ask your sellers, now, how did you acquire the property?
Yeah.
And, oh, my mom died. Well, okay, you can go ahead and setting them up and setting their expectations up, and you haven't got an investor lined up that's going to purchase the property that is then going to be waiting 3 or 4 months for us to get it corrected and growing impatient with you. You
Right.
can do a little research and make yourself increase your value to your buyers,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
help
my
your
God.
sellers out too.
So I say this so many times when I'm the wholesaler and I'm in the middle. You're the wholesaler. You're in the middle. Okay.
Right.
And you're basically just like what do you call someone in your office, like a closing secretary
closing
or
coordinator,
a closing coordinator? That's what you are.
Yeah.
If you're a wholesaler, you can very easily become a closing coordinator because you're literally managing the schedule and managing a buyer, a seller, the closing agent,
Mhm.
you're trying to mesh all these schedules together, potentially go out there and try to find, like you just said, 19 signatures are required. Sometimes you, the wholesaler, if you want that property sold and
Yeah.
you want that assignment fee, you got to do that legwork.
Yeah, and there's
And
often that we have to kick it back just because we want to get the transaction closed, but there's not enough resources in a single transaction for
Right.
$15,000
Right.
for me to even to prepare the 19 different sets of documents. I'm probably at a loss, which I don't mind because we care about the relationships, not the individual transactions, and there's no closing that's too large for us to do, and there's none that are too small
Right.
that
Right.
we aren't happy to participate
For
in.
sure.
But at some point, we may have to say, hey, this is what you need. This is your seller. You need to take it to the seller. And that's a lot of your time, too. And you need to assess whether or not an $800 commission is worth tracking down.
Heck yeah.
And that's
Definitely.
It's not just my time and our resources that I'm concerned about when I'm talking about some of these items. It's for the person in the middle and for the investor to make sure that they don't have
Right.
earnest money tied up in something that's not really going to close,
Yeah.
or passing other opportunities because they've pledged funds for something we don't know if it's going to be able
That's
to be
right.
purchased or not.
Yeah, absolutely right. And kind of last thing I want to talk to, because there's more to closing a property than talking about wholesalers.
Right.
But the last question I want to ask you about wholesaling is, you've told me in the past that there are wholesalers that kind of treat it as a business, as probably they should,
Yes.
and then there are wholesalers that really, they either, I don't know, maybe they learn how to do it on a YouTube video. I'm not sure. So kind of talk to like the common mistakes a wholesaler would make that maybe the people that are listening to this can avoid.
Some of the ones concerning some that I see are just not leaving yourself enough room in a deal, and the people that are more professional will just say, hey, this was just going to be a small deal, but it gave a property to somebody. It put my name out there to the seller, and if I made $500 on this deal and I did $10,000 worth of work, it's okay. Some of them I see going back and trying to negotiate the seller down and then keeping the difference for home inspection type issues and things that I don't think are the best way to do business.
Right.
And I think one thing you just got to know, if you get in a bad one, just move on through it and try to get past it and get to more profitable closings.
Sure.
But the not managing both sides of the transaction, as you're saying, the groups that I have the hardest time with, we work off of a calendar in my office. We don't work off of when anything's back, then we just try to close it right then. And you need to allot yourself time for a closing agent to order letters that may take 1 to 2 weeks. I think the sewer department's gotten a little better, but they could go back to having a big delay again.
Sure.
Letters from cities, homeowners associations. You need to inform the closing attorney that there are homeowners associations because your contact is with the seller.
That's right.
If you have a seller whose spouse is dead, we don't have any way to know that other than they don't show up at closing. If you have companies that have businesses that are purchasing from you, tell them that whoever the closing attorney or title company is going to need their LLC documents. If you're going to run an LLC, you need to have an operating agreement in place that tells who can do what and gives authority. There's no inherent business authority to buy or sell property. The only authority that you have is what you gave yourself, and it needs to be spelled out so the closing attorney can know who needs to sign on your behalf. Even.
That's right.
Sometimes it's two people. Sometimes either one can sign. Sometimes it's a sole member. But there's no way to know that without providing the documents. So scheduling a closing with a reasonable time, setting people's expectations is probably the best thing you can do to look good and look professional to everybody involved. And you can't set their expectations if you're not early on determining, is this going to be a valid seller, or what are we going to have to do? Because then you can tell your buyer, hey, we've got a property for you. It looks like there's some estate issues. It's probably going to have to go to court to get worked out, but all the kids have agreed on it. There's no other heirs.
Yeah.
And it may take us 60 days.
Yeah, and that's okay. You know, a lot of I think a lot of newer wholesalers, I guess maybe because they see either the signs or they see the ads that say, hey, we could close in 7 to 10 days, and you want to say that, but sometimes when there's something that just has some issues, has a lot of errors, has a lot of something going on, and it's not. We can close in as little as 7 to 10 days, but hey, if there's all this going on, you, the wholesaler, can set that expectation ahead of time.
Yeah, for both sides.
For both parties. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. So, Jeff, you guys don't just obviously work with wholesalers.
Yeah.
You do a lot of what's kind of your bread and butter transaction? I'm sure you work with a lot of realtors and do traditional closings as well.
Off the top of my head, I would say that between 50 and 60% of my business comes from real estate agents driving it. I also have about 8 to 12% of my business, and my numbers may not all add up because I'm just guesstimating, but it is my investment business, wholesalers, flippers, probably make it 15% now, just individuals who have used me before, and they're telling their agent to come back. We get a pretty healthy amount of business delivered from loan officers at banks, maybe another 25 or 30%, and that changes as refis come and go, as rates drop and raise, and then some business from builders, and then I also have some relationships with people who buy and sell raw land, timberland, farmland. I've got some loan officers that have specific programs that will go up to 80% on agricultural purpose land. Yeah. And so even though I'm not in an area where there is a lot of it, right. because of some relationships I've developed, that's probably another 5 to 10% of what we're doing. Yeah. And I try to keep it, I guess I want any business I can get, but I try to focus on some diversity. Because,
just in case something dries up.
Yeah, and it keeps your year going too, because a great time for investors to buy property is November, December, January, February, when the real estate market has cooled off seasonally. Right. That's a good time to pick up because people are still wanting to sell that haven't sold.
Right. No, absolutely right. And you know what? And I'm looking at my notes here. Believe this or not, I actually do have notes and I do have questions written down in advance. You mentioned something to me one time about title insurance for the middle man in a wholesale. Like, so there's the A guy, the seller. Mm-hmm. You're the wholesaler on a double close, and then there's a buyer. Yes. You mentioned to me one time that the wholesaler, because you asked me if I got title insurance as the wholesaler, and I said no. And you mentioned to me that maybe I should consider that. Why should I consider that?
And someone might have some arguments for what I'm saying, but usually when we're dealing with a wholesaler, the contract can be structured where maybe on one side you're paying for all closing costs, maybe you're paying for none on either, so you don't care. You can be getting title insurance for free. What we do when we do double closings like that is split the search fee, then follow the contract on the premium on both sides. And we have reduced closing costs because we're doing 2 closings for the same transaction.
Right.
If you have an assignment, there's no need for title insurance because you never owned anything more than a contract. You didn't actually own real estate.
Right.
And so the reason that I suggest it to people that wholesale property is because the way the insurance agencies agree to provide insurance is they all have indemnity agreements with each other. And so if there was a claim made and I underwrite through Fidelity, for instance, and they sued us and the title work was wrong, we would go back on Stewart because we took their owner's policy and relied on it. Now we only searched 5 years. And then if Stewart had done their job, they would go back to a First American or someone else, and maybe that's where there was an error in the title work or a mortgage that didn't get paid off that's still valid, and it just passes it back down the chain. And so when your investor buys a piece of property from you and there, finds out that he doesn't own the property, he makes a title claim against me. I'm going to turn around, turn it over to Stewart. The wholesaler is given a warranty deed to the investor that there's no title issues. And so Stewart is going to come and sue the wholesaler.
Right.
Then the wholesaler, who has no insurance, would have to turn around individually and sue their seller, who, depending on the price point that you're wholesaling, could be anything from, $1 million homes to somebody that's selling their primary residence in a $20,000 house, and probably judgment proof.
Right.
And so, specifically for that, I feel like it's easier for a wholesaler to get stuck in the middle.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something to consider. I've never done it before. I've never gotten, I probably, between assignments and double closes, it's probably 50-50 of what I do, depending on who I work with. I've never gotten title insurance before, and it's definitely something to consider. I operate out of an LLC or a corp, so I've never had my personal name involved. Right. Maybe that helps a little bit. Yeah. But it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, you can just get in a situation, not for $20,000 probably, but
right.
where you're having to shut down your business, start up, just for cost.
That's right.
It's just cost over time.
Absolutely.
Is it worth it?
Absolutely.
And it personally doesn't matter to me the difference on just premium on houses the size they're usually being wholesale is not a lot of extra money for me, but I just feel like it's better protection.
It's not a lot of money. Clients. It's not a lot of money, period.
That's right.
So it might be worth it. Definitely something to consider. Well, Jeff, tell people how they can I really do appreciate you coming on. Tell people how they can get a hold of you. What's the best way?
Yes, our office number is 205-776-8800. My personal email address is jmorris@mbrstitle.com. That's just the letter J. And my cell phone is 205-718-2289. Those are the best ways to get in touch with us. In our office, I have an attorney that kind of does the backside work, and her name is Amy Courtney, and Amy's a good one to call.
Yeah.
She has 2 other attorneys that work for her, all just to prepare the documents and make sure we've done things correctly and got them out timely. And then my underwriter's name is Linda Thompson, and if you have very specific title questions, Linda worked for Fidelity in Chicago for 19 years before she came to us, and some Fidelity here, but her experience is she's written title for $100 million buildings, and so she's very courteous and helpful, and we try to put people in place where anybody at our office can help you, or sends you to the right person immediately. And I have my cell phone in this podcast because it's on my business card too, and
Okay.
that's something a little different. I don't mind you calling me if I can't
Okay.
answer. I just won't, but I don't mind if it's after work. And
Okay, great.
I
Because I was
want
going to ask you
to help
that.
you guys grow your business.
Yeah, definitely.
That grows my business.
Thank you, Jeff. I really do appreciate that. I was actually going to ask you the question. Do you want me to go back and edit that out? Because
No.
some people don't. You may get some
Most
calls. You may
attorneys will
not.
not have their cell phone on their business card, but I don't mind. I've got it for my agents and my loan officers, and I'm
Gotcha.
happy for anybody that's part of your group and wants to learn how to do
Awesome.
this business to call me.
We can't thank you enough for that. Get all the information on how to get a hold of Jeff is going to be in the show notes. So definitely check out the show notes. Their office number 205-776-8800, and you can email Jeff at jmorris@mbRstitle.com.